So Aaron, where are you from?
Michigan.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how's it
Hey,
going?
Cameron, you're in a different room.
I'm in the same room. I just switched my camera to a different monitor so that I can look more up instead of down,
Oh, gotcha.
if that works.
I do that too. That way I don't have as much double chin.
That's right, exactly. I don't know that it's working, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. Okay, how's everybody doing today?
Pretty good.
Ta-da.
I'll have to split at like 12:30. We got to go set some stuff today. So
All right, sounds good. Support.
Tom and Tyler, how's your weather doing for you guys up there?
They say it's too cold, too cold.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know. I'm just kidding. Canada, it's got to be too cold, right?
Well, it was
We got
snowing
snow
here
coming
yesterday.
tomorrow.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it snowed here last night too, so I spent the morning shoveling snow.
Oh,
terrible.
Oh, I should get a teenager. Oh wait, I got one of those. I should get a teenager that does something.
Yeah, it's too bad that teenagers are really kind of worthless.
Yeah,
Oh.
pretty much. I won't say that out loud though.
I made it through my two older girls. They're 27 and 29, but this 15-year-old is about to take me out.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad mine are grown up and out of the house.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm close. I'm getting there. I'm counting every day.
All right. Well, since Aaron's got a jet soon, we will get started. Okay. Tammy sent me an email. She said she had started as a design and then was having trouble with it. So I'm going to open that one up and share my screen, and we'll go from there. Wherever my share screen button is. This one here. Share. Oops, that didn't work. Let's try this again. Oh my gosh.
There I am swimming.
Try this out. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
And I'll turn on my on-screen display. Throw it up here. Okay, I think we're ready. Okay, well, what in the world did you do, Tammy?
I know it's a hot mess.
So you were talking about using Knockout for this.
Well, I was trying to get those middles out because I thought that magically my letters should be black and the middles should be frosted,
Okay.
but that's not what happened.
Okay. So I'm going to show you the trick for doing that. Okay. Whenever
But
you
can you
have,
tell me if did I just like do this the completely wrong way?
I don't know exactly what you did do, so I'll show you the way that I would do it, and then you can tell me whether you did it the wrong way. How's that sound?
Okay.
So what I would do if I had text like this, I usually grab, and this isn't text anymore. This has been converted to curves. You know, if I move it around, it's a single piece of text, and you can see all the nodes that make up that text. It's no longer editable as text. I can't just grab my text tool and click on it and edit it anymore.
Yeah, I had to convert it to curves to get the black out of the middle because I couldn't use knockout.
Okay, so did you had it as text before in Coreldraw, or did you bring it in from somewhere else?
No, I think this was a Coreldraw.
What I would do is I would take all of the pieces, especially all of the ones that make up the last name, okay? And the way that it is right now, if we move these over, you'll see how we've got frosted centers, okay?
I think I knocked those out, that's why.
Yeah, so you could go, I mean, if you click on knockout, you can do that for each of these individual pieces, but then you have to do it for each of them. And then each of these letters is still all by themselves. So I wouldn't normally use knockout for something like this. What I would do is I just grab all of those pieces and simply combine them together. By combining them together, they become one object and they automatically show through to what's underneath them. Okay, so I would do the same thing for each of these lines of text. And I like to do it line by line just so that they stay together. So I would just grab each of these lines of text and combine them together. You'll notice that this one didn't work, and that's because I accidentally didn't make my box wide enough. So I'm just going to hold Shift and click on this last letter and then combine that and it'll work. So by grabbing all of the letters, insides and outside pieces, and combining them, what happens is those inside paths become a subpath to this outside one, and then it will show through to what's underneath it. Unless this had a reversed curve and fill winding was checked, and then it wouldn't work. That's what we had talked about last time. But because of the way you've got it, everything works fine, so we don't really have to worry about that at all. All I did was grab each of those lines and combine them together.
And then I was trying to take that middle panel
Okay,
and contour it to get an outline to bring it down to the bottom of the line where the cross was, right?
okay, so this panel here,
Yeah.
you want to outline.
I
Are you
want,
going to do you want to have a double line to match this?
yeah, that would be awesome.
So what I would do is I'd take, I'd kind of zoom out until I see this middle handle here,
Yeah,
and then I would click on it. And I'm just going to move my mouse over. It doesn't hurt anything to move my mouse left and right because I'm just clicking on a side handle. Okay, but I can move my mouse over to here, and then I can move it up until it hits and snaps to right here.
okay.
The reason I did that is so that I can snap to wherever this is starting at. And then I would measure however big these lines are so that I know a line thickness,
What
0.047.
did you just measure it with?
I just used my freehand tool to draw a line there.
Okay.
However, 0.047 inches is not very thick. So I think what I would want to do is I'd want to thicken this piece up first before I did anything. Okay, so we've got two pieces here. We've got the inside frosted part and we've got the outside frost or the outside line. So I would combine those together, and it doesn't matter. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters where you place your reference line. But what I look for when I'm placing a reference line for resizing things is where in this design is there a line that's a consistent thickness that I want to mess with. And pretty much anywhere on this cross or anywhere on here, they're all pretty consistent, right? So I'll just draw a reference line from here to here. Again, it's telling me 0.047 inches is how thick it is. So if I have a reference line and I hold Shift and I click on the piece that we had combined together, then I can run Blastable, which is this tool right here. And Blastable will then go and change the 0.047 to a 0.09. I think that's what I have it set for. Let me hold Control and click and see. So over on another monitor here. Yeah, so I've got 0.09 as my Blastable line thickness. Is that what you would use, or would you use a different line thickness?
No, I would use that.
Okay. So I did that first so that when I come in and grab this, and I'm going to redo this, I'm going to just grab it at the handle and move over here so that I can snap to right there. Okay, the reason I did that is because now I can come over to panels and spacing, and I can tell it to be a double line, filled panel. I'm going to go back to 0.09 instead of 0.078. And I also want to measure the bar line, because this line here, from here to here, is our bar line, okay? So if we want to match it, we'd go 0.182 for our bar. So 0.182 right there. That way when I grab this rectangle and hit apply, it's going to build a panel with the same bar line that's going to match the rest of that design. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, can you tell me how to get those little lines out of there?
Yeah, so now we've got an overlapping design, right? We've got this part and we've got this part that are overlapping. So there's two things we can do. One is if we want to be able to reuse this design later and bring this out and pull it out, you know, later on, we can keep it as its own piece and not do anything crazy to it. So I'm going to show you two different ways of messing with this. The one is I would simply take this line here and grab my nodes and just extend it beyond where it was before, and do the same thing over here, because all we're doing is visually making it so that these are overlapping. Actually, I'm gonna scoot back really quick. I'm going to do it with a nudge because that way I know exactly how far I'm moving it. So if I grab it and then just hit my left arrow over, I'm going by 1/4 of an inch to the left. And I'll do the same thing on the right. The reason I'm doing the same is because that way I know that it's going to still stay symmetrical, right? The black, it doesn't really matter, but I could do the same thing. I could just grab those nodes and nudge them over, grab those nodes and nudge them over. No, I don't want to nudge those over, sorry, because otherwise we wouldn't be overlapping anymore. So now we've got this piece overlapping this piece, and you know, then it flows correctly. But it's also its own piece, so we can move that if we ever wanted to get rid of it. You could also do something called grouping it so that the frosted part and the black part are now grouped together as a single object, which makes it easier for you to go and move it, you know, all together. So that's one option.
But if you had it grouped together, you wouldn't be able to extend that frosted line to cover up the black.
You can, but you have to dig into the group to do it. So if I were to click, see if I click with the shape tool, it's not doing anything because this is a grouped object, right? So I have to hold Control and click because what Control clicking does is it digs inside that group to get to what's inside the group. So I can grab those now that I've held Control and clicked, but before it wouldn't do that because again, it's not really seeing those nodes unless I hold Control and click to dig.
And when I convert that into Gerber to cut a mat, it's not creating any cut lines there, right?
So the way that it is right now, if you were to send this to Gerber, what Gerber is going to see is this. It's going to see the overlaps.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And so you need to fix that before you cut it. But I would wait until I'm cutting to fix that, because if you keep it in pieces right now, let's say, you know, Anthony's, I don't know, son or something wants to duplicate his stone and look exactly the same. So you can reuse this design, but then say he doesn't want that cross anymore. So you would just simply pull that out super easy, and then you could put something else in its place. The more you keep things in layers, the easier it is for you to manipulate those designs. And then on the back end, when it comes time to cut, then you can mess with it from there.
Okay.
Is what I would do. The other option is if you don't want to do that, if you want to make sure that it cuts correctly, then what you would do is you would need to, you know, get rid of these intersecting lines somehow, right? There are a couple different ways to get rid of intersecting lines, but I find the easiest is to grab these panel lines, and I'm just going to hold Alt and drag a box because that way it's going to select. It's supposed to. Let me try that again. Yeah, so holding Alt and dragging is going to select the these 4 lines of my panel. I will combine those together first. Okay. And then I'm going to hold Shift and select just the black outline of the piece, of this piece. And what I'll do is I'll weld it together. So I've got this one here. I'm going to hold Shift and click on this one. My Shift key is not working. Hold on a second. That's weird. Maybe I was just not holding Shift. So I Shift clicked this, and then I'm going to hit W to weld it. And what that will do is it will weld the black parts together. It also grabbed this because it was combined together. So I guess what I could have done, if I back it up just a little way, let's back it up just a little bit before I combine these together. Okay, so if I back it up just a little bit, what we can do is we can take these two inside lines here and combine those. And then we've got the frosted part of this one. So we can take, oh, that's not gonna work either. This is why it's tricky, because if I take this and weld it to this, it's gonna make a line go all the way through all those pieces, just like that. That's not what I want to happen.
So is there not a way to just, like the selector tool can't just click on that one little line and delete it?
You can, yeah. So I'm gonna, that's probably a much smarter way of going. So I'm going to back up and we're gonna do that. Okay. So instead, the thing is that, so we've got this, the panel line, this panel line, we do want to weld it to this because that gets rid of all of those lines in here that we don't need anymore. And then all we really need is to get these two to match up, right? So you can take your shape tool and click on it. And if it gives you that black circle, that means that segment between those two nodes is selected. So then you can just hit delete on the keyboard and do the same thing for this one. Hit delete on the keyboard. And now you're left with no line there, but an open gap. So what you have to do is you need to take both of these and basically you're combining them, or you're going to join them together. So in order to do that, if you grab both of them first and combine them so they become a single object, then you can take both nodes and do what's called a join. So you just hit J on the keyboard, just select them and hit J, and it's going to move both of those nodes toward each other and turn them into a single node in between where they were. And we don't even need them anymore because they're just straight line segments, right? So we can get rid of those nodes altogether and just clean that up a little bit. Same thing over here. You could do the same thing, or I'll show you one other way as well. If these were overlapping, you can use what's called the virtual segment delete, where as long as they're overlapping, you can delete those. But what you end up with is this part here and this part here now. So you have to remember to join those together. Again, just grab them and hit J, or the virtual segment delete actually has a join option as well. Let's see what we got here. So we're just going to hit those and J and get rid of all of them. We don't really need them anymore. So by doing that, all of this is now combined together. It's not filled in because it's just combined and showing through to what's underneath it. So if we want to fill it with the inside part being frosted, then what we would do is just grab it and hit fill grayscale here. And fill grayscale will basically separate the inside pieces from that outline and combine those all together.
Cameron, I got a question.
Yep.
So now that that's all welded together, can you take out that cross just by itself now? Or is it all like put together?
Yeah, because it's all welded together. I mean, you can get rid of it if you come in here and break these pieces apart. You'd have to come in and break it apart, break it apart, break it apart, and break it apart at every line. And then you can separate it out. And that's why I was saying before, to keep it together like this over on this side, you know, to keep it where this is its own object just layered on top of the other one is much easier when it comes to moving things out and rearranging things, because you can just grab this and move it out of the way, right? Sorry, I'm gonna get rid of that.
If I can add, you know, you could take this design and you could save it as, you know, Koopman cross design and then have it in 3 or 4 different sizes. But then also, like Cameron said, retain that cross as a separate entity and call that Koopman cross. And that way, if someone came in and said, I like this, but I want this, you know, because you know how it goes. We create a design in 5 sizes and someone will come in and want it in the 6th and 7th size, right?
For sure.
Okay, and to delete those little nodes, you just highlighted them. You selected them and then you just hit delete on your key. That's how you get rid of nodes.
Yeah, so if I want to do a lot, at a time,
Yeah.
then I'll grab it. If I grab all this, you'll see I just grab all these nodes. They'll turn blue, but even this one here, I'm going to deselect this one so that doesn't happen. All right, now it's the wrong button. Grab all these. My fingers aren't working today. Control, click, control, click. Okay, so I've got all of these ones blue. If they're highlighted, I can just hit the delete button and they'll disappear.
Oh, okay.
If we look at this design now, we'll see that the text has actually been combined with the panel. Normally, if you have editable text, that's not going to happen because the fill grayscale button knows editable text shouldn't be combined with a panel. And so it ignores the text from the selection. But because all of this text was converted to curves and it's completely inside this panel, the fill grayscale button actually thought, oh, it needs to be combined. So it combined it all together. So I'm actually going to undo this last fill grayscale option that we did because I don't want that text to be part of this panel. So there's a couple different things that you can do to just fill this grayscale and not mess with the rest of it. A lot of times I'll just grab the text that I want to keep, hit Control X because it sends it to the clipboard so that I can bring it back later. Then I'll fill grayscale and then I'll just hit paste, Control V, and it'll come back. But that way it's separated from the rest of it, right? Another way that I would do that sometimes is I'll just change my nudge to something like 50 or whatever, grab what I want to keep and nudge it down or up or whatever, do my editing, and then it's down here. So I just have to hit up again and it'll go right back to where it needs to be. So those are just a couple of things that I do when I'm trying to manipulate things and, you know, move things around and make sure that they don't mess with other things that are already on there.
I'm sure everybody already knows this except me, but I don't even know what a clipboard is.
So the clipboard in Windows is basically the memory of, if you're typing something and you hit cut, then whatever you cut is going to temporary storage in Windows, so that you can then paste it later. It's the same thing as copying and pasting, except that I was cutting it, meaning I'm not going to leave a copy there. I'm just going to take it away so that I can reuse it later. And that's really a Windows thing, being able to cut and copy and paste. But that's what the clipboard is a temporary storage location for that data to reside on. And the way that it works in Coreldraw is whatever was the last thing that you copied or cut, that's what's going to be on your clipboard. So if I had taken this and I went and said Control X to cut, and now it's gone all of a sudden, and then I wanted to come over to this one and I grabbed this and I did a copy. So I'm just going to hit Control C to copy it. If I think that this Koopman is going to come back by pasting, it's not, because what's going to happen is Anthony's going to come back because that was the last thing that I had copied or cut. Okay, so you have to pay attention to the last thing that you did, make sure that you're doing it in order of steps, so that if you're cutting or copying, you're only doing one of those things and not two or more than one step, because otherwise it's not going to retain that. Now Windows has gotten smarter, and in other programs like Excel or whatever, a lot of Newer programs are allowing multiple things on the clipboard. But for our purposes in Coreldraw, you've got basically one thing that you can put on the clipboard. Make sense? Any questions on that stuff, Julia?
No, I just didn't know what the heck a clipboard was, but I bet Tammy's gonna ask you to save that and send to her.
I think that's probably wise.
Yes, please.
I don't know. Oh, look at that. See, my nudge was still set at 50, so it went over 50 inches. I don't want that to happen. 0.25. But does that make sense why I would leave things in kind of separated from each other?
Yes, it
And as
does.
Charlie was saying, I could save this because I've created this design and I've thickened it up to be, sandblastable. I can save this if I just go up to File and say Save As.
As long as it's selected.
As long as it's selected, right? Then I can do what's called a selected only Save As. And I don't need any of this other stuff checked. But I can tag it, so I can say cross. And what kind of cross is that? Anybody know? I know it's got a special name. Nobody? All right. Some sort of crazy cross. What else was in there? We had some sort of floral design. So we can tag it and keyword it with whatever we want to remember it by later or be able to search by later, and just save it to wherever we save our clip art. And so I'll just put this in, I'll just put it on the desktop for now, but I would give it a name. Charlie said to, name it the Koopman Cross. I myself, when I save my own artwork, I save it with a number. So if my next number was 12,000, I would name it as 12,000, but have tags that way. The reason I save it as a number is because it's easier for me to open something up by just typing it in on my numeric keypad, as opposed to typing in a bunch of words. So I'll save it this way and hit save. And because I've got selected only there, what it's going to do is it's going to only save that piece of artwork all by itself. So if I go to my desktop, it will be there as its own piece of artwork. And
So another thing you could have done is if you do want it all welded together, you could save it with all your tags and stuff and then weld it together.
you can, yeah, you can certainly do that too. I mean, I can save this now all by itself. I can save this one as its own design. I can save this one as its own design. So you can have a welded and a not welded version. Because when it comes to cutting, this one's going to be faster to use over here because it's already ready to go. We don't have to mess with anything, right? The one over here on the left, when it comes to cutting, we would need to do our welds and stuff. So if it's a design that you use over and over and over again, and all you're ever changing is the text, then it is a good idea to, keep them together or to keep them all welded, because it saves you time on the back end. But more often than not, I find that people want to just customize things to their own. They want to change the panel style. They want to change whatever, and so I like to keep things separate as much as I can. Just 1 second. Okay. So Tammy, did that make any sense at all to what I did as far as using combine as opposed to whatever steps you had taken?
Yes, and I cannot remember because I was messing around so much trying to figure it out if I put this in from Gerber or if I created this from scratch.
Sure.
Maybe I put it in from Gerber, which is why it turned all my middles black. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. And so Analia, she said hi, and then Tyler, he asked, does Windows plus V work in Coreldraw? So Windows plus V is that's being able to show your clipboard with history, right, Tyler? I'm pretty sure. I don't have that turned on, so I'm going to try really quick and see what happens. And I don't know if I can move it over so you can see it. Let me see. It does not want to let me move it over. Let me try this. I'm going to turn this screen into my main monitor. Display settings. Give it just a minute here. This might mess with things a little bit. Make this my main display. Okay. So Tyler was asking whether Windows plus V instead of Control V works in Coreldraw. So let's give that a try. As soon as my monitors reset themselves. Come on. I don't think Windows likes changing monitor layouts when you're in the middle of a meeting. I don't know why. It's just a hint, just a guess. Some apps won't. This one. Make my monitor. Oh, it did not like that. Crazy. I'm going to try something different then. I'll make this one my main screen. I'm going to stop sharing really quick while this is working, and then I'll bring it back, okay? Have a good one, Aaron. It was good to have you. Okay, let's try this again.
Hey, Charlie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How's it going?
Good.
I can't complain except for the little bits of snow that want to come here, but other than that,
Well,
Oh,
we got
good.
snow in Illinois last night. So, yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
I'm
Wowzers. Okay, I'm going to share a different screen this time, and we'll see what happens this way. Cancel. Screen 4. Let me know if you guys see this screen now. Are you able to see Coreldraw?
Yep.
So if I had typed in text 1, and then I did text 2, and then let's bring in a box or something like this. We're just going to do a test because Tyler, I don't know. I've never played with it. So we're going to try. If I have text 1 and hit Windows V, that's my clipboard history. Select an item in your clipboard history to paste it. So I'm going to hit Control C on this one. And I'm going to hit Control C on this one. And then I'm going to hit Control C on this one. And we'll see if the 3 of those things go to the history. I'm going to hit Shift V now. And now you see down here how it's got a clipboard history. So I'm going to click Anthony. And look at that, Tyler. It says the specified data format is not available. I'm going to try again with this one. Nope, not available. and not available, and not available.
How do
So
you get- how do
There's
you
a
get-
few different really cool clipboard apps, you know, to use for things like that, but I think the best example, Cameron, like if you take text one right now and click it,
yep,
and Julie, you watching that? So watch what happens. Like he's going to Control C to copy it. So what he did is he copied it to the clipboard. The clipboard is something we don't see. It's sitting in the computer. It's a memory. Now, if he does a paste, he can do that by choosing the edit menu, or the shortcut is Control V. What's important to know about clipboard, anybody that's watched, doesn't matter what program you're using, clipboard is something that works in Windows. So you can copy text in, if you're on Facebook and you're in a message in your internet, browser, if you're in Word, and in this situation, we're in Coreldraw. So now grab text 2 and would you please cut that? Okay, so copying leaves it there. See how cutting it removes it. Now, Cameron, open up a new document, please. Now, he hasn't done any typing. Just do a Control V. See, he pasted it. So think about it this way. If I had 2 pieces of paper, let me think of the best way to do this. We'll just go with this. He's got 2 documents, and he's set up the lettering on one document, on one monument, and he's making a duplicate monument in a different document. And all the lettering is the same except for the first name and the dates. The poem, whatever, it's all the same. Rather than type that all over again, he just selects it and copies it. It goes into the computer and stores in memory. And then when he tells it to paste it, it puts it in place. Does that make sense? Does that help a little bit better understand that?
It does.
So
I
you
get
have
it.
3 basic commands. You have copy, which will leave the original. You have cut, which will take it out. And then paste, which will place whether you cut it or copied it. Most of the time, you're better off using copy and paste and then delete your original if you don't want it, in case you didn't cut it correctly. But it's just a place in Windows that hides it in the memory, so you can come back to it and refer to it.
for sure. And Tyler, back to your question, I would assume that the reason that the history stuff doesn't work is because however it's storing it in the history of the clipboard, I mean, it's apparently doesn't like that file format that it's using to keep that in the history. Sometimes you'll run into problems with copying and pasting from other programs. It'll say the same thing. So if I hit Control V again, or Windows V again, and try to paste, and it says the specified data format is not available. If it doesn't like that format that it's in, sometimes you can get around that by going up to Edit and say Paste Special. And then you can paste it as something specific, a bitmap or text, depending on what it is, and then click OK and it'll paste. So it's actually pasting it as a bitmap as opposed to the vector that it was before. And I would assume if I said paste special and said text, then it's actually going to paste it, but it's pasting it as paragraph text. So maybe it just didn't like, maybe it doesn't understand the kind of text that it is. I'm not sure, but I could convert that then to paragraph text and have it again. But I don't think that would work with this. Let's try. We'll try the box. So we're going to copy that, and then we will Windows V, and this is going to be our box. It's going to say, well, that one actually worked. Let's do it again. Windows V. Let's click on this one. Okay, so that's not available. And if we try to paste, it brings it in as a bitmap, which is not what we want, right? So anyway, that's a good question, because I think clipboard history is, it's nice that they've been able to add that kind of stuff in recent versions of Windows. So it would definitely be nice if Coreldraw could deal with that as well. Good question. Okay. I'm going to try to share my other screen again. We'll see what happens here. This one. Come on, move over. This is crazy. Moving all my screens around really messed up being able to maximize to the screen for some reason. There we go. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I will start sharing this one again.
I don't know if anybody else sent homework in. I did send you an email with just a little one if nobody has, but it's not important if other people have sent things.
You just did just now or before?
I just did like 3 minutes ago.
Which email address did you send it to?
It came from Paper and Granite
I'm gonna
and
check.
it went to support.
Okay, I'm gonna check my spam.
But see if anybody else sent one first. So
Julia, I'm afraid to say that you've been classified as spam. I'm gonna not junk you.
well, you know, spam is from Minnesota. So.
Okay. No, as far as people sending stuff in ahead of time, Tammy was the only one, so we are good on this. Let's pull up Julia's design. How
While
to
you're
make
doing that, I just want to inform everybody that I ate spam yesterday.
That's gross.
Hey,
It's really gross.
In Europe, it's considered a delicacy.
Have you been to Europe? Really?
I had a son-in-law from Hawaii and they eat it by the,
Yeah, Hawaii,
Truckloads.
not Europe. I'm sorry. It is. It's a delicacy in Hawaii.
they eat it by the truckloads. So what I did with this one, I was just playing around to come up with, just to play around with things. So originally it was 2 flowers on either side. I tried to take off the flower on the left side and put in the eagle, but I didn't know how to match the curved line up to the eagle tail
Okay.
from the other side.
Okay. So I'm going to try something and see how I like it. Okay. So you've got these all combined. Let's cut. Okay. So I'm going to take my shape tool and I'll click on my panel so that I can get to the nodes that make this up. And I'm just going to select this node here. Holding Shift, I will select this node. And what that does is it selects all 3 nodes or all the nodes in between my clicks. Okay. So I started with this one, I held Shift, clicked on this one, and it grabbed all of those. You can actually copy and paste node segments. So if I hit Control C and Control V, it's going to make a copy of that little portion of the design. Okay. And so by doing that, what I can then do is send it over to this side or mirror it and put it on the, basically put it over here. So I'm going to, since I want it on the same, in the same location on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and just hit the mirror button up here, mirror objects, and it should put it then right over there. And it's going to put it in line, but I'm curious, I'm looking at the design here really quick to see.
Can I pose a couple questions about the design?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can ask whatever you want. I was
is there-
just trying to figure out.
Okay, is there a particular reason why that rose has to be angled at that like that? Is it to follow the eagle?
So there, it was already an existing design that had 2 roses on either side,
Oh.
right?
Right. Okay.
And so I just took that design because
Right.
they were talking about a rose and then they wanted an eagle for dad. So I was just playing around. How can I take a rose? What rose would kind of
Okay,
match
so gotcha.
there was no
so-
rhyme or reason.
So what I would do, and there's, with designing monuments in Coreldraw, there's 20 ways to do everything, it's just the way it is. I personally would make this panel first, and I would make it straight so then I can use it again someday,
Okay,
in case the name on the top isn't J, but it's Wilhelmina.
right.
So I would make that a square panel. So if I was building this for you, rebuilding this, I would just make a square panel. I would add the scroll at the bottom, and then I would place the eagle and the rose on top of that,
Okay,
because then I could
Okay.
move it around. Now, of course, the eagle has more weight, value than the rose right now,
right.
but that's okay. You're still going to get more, white space and negative space from that panel.
Yep.
Versus trying to fix, this, not that this is this. I'm just
No,
saying,
it's
like,
okay.
it's the easiest way to do it to me is to not try to make a completely welded panel.
Got it. Yeah, because I took the rose out, and if you go back to the wireframe, you see my wonky lines that I was trying to go through there. I'm like, how do I get
Yeah.
rid of that so it doesn't cut that? And how
You
do
don't-
I?
You don't need to get rid of it until it's approved and ready to cut. Then you can weld it, and that's a whole different situation, and that's easy peasy.
Okay,
So
Well-
let's do this, Julia. Let's take it and do it both ways, and we'll show you basically both setups. Okay, so the way that Charlie was talking about it, and then also just simply changing this line.
yeah, I wouldn't mind if you show me how you guys even just.
So we'll do it
I'm
both
just gonna
ways.
let you know now that I'm gonna have to bug out here in a little bit. I've got a plumber coming, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
We're
It's
taking
important.
the short.
It is.
Okay, so one thing that I did, Julia, I don't know if you had seen, but I took the panel itself, okay, and grouped it together. And then I centered that group on the stone, because it seemed to me that this, from here to here, okay, this amount here, 1.5 inches, was not the same as this side before I had centered it. And so that's what I did, was I took all of these pieces and grouped them so that I could then center to the stone and make sure that it's center. And that way, when I grabbed these nodes and did a copy, and then I did a mirror, when I
Oh, yeah.
mirrored it, it then is going to pop back over on this side in the correct location. Whereas before it was a little bit further over this way because it wasn't quite centered. So I centered it first, and then I copied this part, okay? And because I had grouped it, I'm going to go ahead and ungroup these so that I can get to the individual pieces. And I will just, like you were asking Tammy before, I'm just going to grab these nodes and delete them. I don't really need all of those nodes,
Right.
right? I don't really need any of these ones. And sometimes if I do something wonky like this, if I want to clean that up because it's a curved line, if I want to make it a little bit cleaner, I'll just click on it and hit number 1 on the keyboard to convert it to a line segment. That way it just makes it a little bit easier to see there.
Okay.
And I'm really just going to click on it and hit delete and get rid of that line because I don't need it, right?
Right.
And from here, I'm not going to grab this one because if I do that, it will erase this line. I don't want to erase that one. But what I can do is I can delete this little section, and then it gets me to this node. And then I can come down to here and holding shift, click on this one. And again, it's going to select all of those nodes in line and then I'll just hit delete and it will get rid of all of those as well.
Oh, wow.
So now I've gotten back to just having this little corner
Yep.
piece. And the reason I did that is because I kind of like having this match that,
Me too.
okay? So then the question is, well, what do I do to get my other line, right? Or how do I then connect this one up to here? You can add nodes by double clicking anywhere on your line, and that adds a node. Okay, and then I can just grab this end node and drag it up to where I want it to be. And I can take this that we've created, and using the contour tool, I can do a contour to the outside. And I want to make sure that I do it the same amount that whatever this is set for. So I
Right.
will,
Yeah,
look
sure.
and see how big that is. 0.132. Is that a standard line thickness that you guys would use, or would you stick to something different?
Blastable line 0.09.
Okay. When you brought in this design, did you resize it? Did you make it bigger or smaller when you brought it in?
Shoot, you're asking a question I don't know the answer to.
Because if I look at it, I mean, our line thicknesses are pretty thick, 0.144. That's pretty thick. So we're going to, and I'm going to look down here too. We'll look right here and see how thick this one is. 0.131, 0.132. Yeah, so that's a bit thicker than what I would normally do things. So what we're going to do is we're going to match it first, and then we'll go back and change it after. Okay.
Okay.
So because this is a 0.132 inch line, when I do my contour, which is this one here, I'm going to go with a 0.132 inch line. Now, because I'm on a single line, it's actually contouring in both directions. Okay, so it's going inside and outside. I don't really need it to go in both directions, but that's what contour is doing. So I'm going to break it apart, and now I can get to the pieces that make up the contour. And again, I'm just going to delete the pieces that I don't need. So I'll come like that, hold shift and click and delete it. So I don't need that inside. All I've got is now my outside. And make sure I bring this back. So in order to move this up and down, I was holding control so that it stays in a straight line. This one I'll just bring over. And when I'm bringing this over, it gives me a preview, or the old line. So it still shows the old line, but it shows my new line. So I just line those up so that it's still keeping that same curve, but overlapping this one. Okay.
Yep.
That way I can use my virtual segment delete to delete that, and that will give me a nice area there.
Okay.
And then I'll come over to this one and see what's going on. I can virtual segment delete because it's easy. I'll just click on these and get rid of them and get rid of them. And now I'm left with this. I'm just going to pull it across. And again, virtual segment delete these until they intersect where I want them to intersect.
Okay.
Now that they're overlapping and overlapping there, if you hold shift with virtual segment delete, you can drag around all of that, and it will join those nodes where they were separated before. And so now we've got a panel that is fillable. So then we can take our bird and just hit shift page up to bring it to the front, and now it's in front of that. And we can take our text and hit shift page up and bring it to the front. Okay.
So when I send that to Tammy, is it going to cut the line underneath the eagle there?
Yes, it would do that unless you, so I'm gonna make another copy here just to show you the difference. Okay. Unless you take this line and combine them together, and then you hold shift and click on the very outside line of this. Actually, if we look at this, the eagle's grouped. So we're gonna ungroup this first, because I only want to get to this outside line. So I'm going to grab these ones, hold shift, click on the outside line, and then weld it together. And that will then easily pull those pieces out.
Okay, that's what
like Charlie was saying before, I normally leave it as as objects though that are layered, because if I wanted to
Right.
switch that bird back out for a
Right.
rose, or if I wanted
Right.
to switch it out for anything, as long as they're layered, you can do that. And then when it comes to production, you just simply weld it together to, you know,
Okay.
to send
Okay.
it off the way that you want.
Okay,
So we'll have it both ways there for you so that you can do one or the other.
cool.
And so all of this, again, this is text, but for some reason some of this had been converted to curves. So I'm going to grab all of the text, hit Control X so that it goes to the clipboard. I'll just hit F to fill this in and then hit V to paste it back in.
Aaliyah asked a question about the last 30 seconds
Okay,
before you did the text.
I'm going to rewind. The last 30, I'm assuming talking about welding.
Yeah.
And I do have some videos on the YouTube channel as to how to weld different pieces together. But the important thing is that whatever's underneath, so in this case, it's this panel, right? Whatever is on the bottom, you want to combine those two pieces or 3 or 4, however many pieces it is together. You combine them together first, so they become a single object. And then on this piece that you want to weld to, you only want to select the very outside. So if this was grouped together, I'm going to show you what happens. If I grab this, hold Shift and grab this and hit W, then it's going to weld it so that all of those inside pieces disappear. And that's not what I wanted to have happen. But the reason it did is because it's welding it to a group of objects and it thinks that it ought to, you know, behave that way. So I don't want to weld to that. Also, if I accidentally selected this inside piece and welded to that one instead, it would look different. You see how it's actually drawing that line through the wings, which is not what we want. And so we really just want to grab just this outside line and then weld those together so that it's getting rid of all those inside intersections that we don't need anymore. And that's the easiest way that I've found to do that, is combining the panels, the panel lines, and then welding to the outline of whatever you're trying to get to.
Cameron, where is weld up on your?
So when you've got multiple pieces selected, so then I've got this one, and then I shift select this one. Weld is right next to combine. It's this one that looks like just 2 boxes without any intersections. Okay.
Okay.
And I always use the keyboard shortcut W just because it's super fast. But combine is here and weld is here. So those are the 2 things that I use most often. If I hadn't combined, if we go back a little way, if I didn't combine these pieces, okay, so if I took this one and shift selected this one and then hit weld, you'll see that I lose a whole bunch of stuff as well. I get rid of all my inside pieces of my other panel, because basically when you're welding this one to this one, it gets rid of all those inside pieces, okay? That's why I combine them together first, is because then they're not going to lose all the detail on the inside. Does that make sense? Was that the last 30 seconds you were hoping for, Analia? I hope so. Good.
Cool.
Okay, so did that make sense, Julia, how I did all that?
Yeah, actually, way better than I thought. I mean, I'm just trying to play around and come up with different things. And
yeah, because you can draw. I mean, we could draw that same line if we wanted to. We could come in and draw a line, you know, and then we can, if depending on the tool that we used, we could, you know, grab this and curve it and draw that ourselves. But I wanted it to be symmetrical with what was over here. And so that's why I just copied what was over there to over here.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
The way that Charlie was talking about would be to actually take basically this panel line. What we're going to do is we're going to take this whole panel that you've got, okay, and we're going to break it up. We're going to break it apart into individual pieces. We're breaking it apart, and now we can grab this portion of the panel and get rid of it. And we can get rid of the outline here. We don't need that anymore. And all we're left with then is our individual pieces. if we combine these pieces together, and I'm just combining like things that I want to, you know, basically be one design. So I'm combining these, not the text. I don't want the text to be combined. I'm just grabbing all of the pieces of the ribbon. I grabbed all the pieces of that, and then this is already combined, so I don't need to worry about that one. But now we've got these pieces separated from everything else, okay? In order to get our lines back, our V lines back, we can do a contour again, and we're just contouring to the outside. And then once it's contoured, we'll break that apart so that this is separate from the inside piece. And we'll do the same thing for this one. We're just going to grab it and contour to the outside. This one's a little bit different. When I break it apart, you'll see that there are some little pieces in here because there was so much space that it was able to create these interior areas. A lot of times I don't like all these little tiny pieces on the inside. And so I will often, after I contour it, I will just break that apart, and you'll see that it's now 15 different objects. And holding Shift, if I click on the outline, then it's going to move to only have the inside pieces selected. And then I'll just hit delete and get rid of all those. And that way I don't have any of those inside pieces that I don't want anymore. And I'm only left with my inside and my outside there. So we've got now these different things, and then you can build a rectangle panel, or I could just grab this one and using contour, if I wanted, I can pull it inward to about there. It says 3 inches, so I'm just going to go to 3 inches and break that apart. So now I've got a rectangle all by itself. You can pull that down so that you got enough room for your bunker, but that gives me an even amount on either side. And if I want to quickly make a panel, I can just hit the frosted outline button. It'll make a really fast panel for me.
Oh, cool.
Because all it's doing is it's doing a contour to the outside. I want to make sure that my frosted outline button is set for a certain, the distance I want though. So if I had this line, I could hit that and it would create that super easy. I mean, that's, you know, really quick. But if we compare it to this one over here, you know, we're a little further off to the right, we're a little further off to the left. So maybe I don't want to make my panel line yet. Maybe I want to bring this in even further. So I can grab the side handle and bring it in like this, okay? But if I want to make sure that I'm bringing it in on both sides, if I hold Shift while I do that, it will do it on in both directions. So I can move this in and out and, you know, place it where I want, but it's going to keep it the same in both directions so that it stays symmetrical. And then from there you can make your panel if you wanted.
What happened down on the bottom one on the rose side in that corner? Nope, the other and the bottom, the one on the right on the bottom. Yep, see underneath the row, yeah.
That's a good question. Oh, I think what happened was I never deleted my, you know, when I made a copy?
Yeah.
I never deleted my copy.
Okay.
So there's
Okay.
underlying here is this piece. So
Okay.
I don't really want that. So I'll get rid of it. Because there's that duplicated piece.
Okay.
It's like, what's going on? So it was trying to auto close between here and there because it was an open curve. And that's why it was showing as black. All right. That looks better. Good eye, good eye, good eye. Okay, so as far as this one is concerned, you know, and I know Charlie likes to have rectangles like this and kind of have overlapping pieces. where there isn't a cutaway from here. And the same thing over on this side, you know, maybe we brought it up like that so that they're just overlapping. That's an option if you want to. I kind of like this look where you're pulling away the actual panel and making your object the edge of the panel. So totally up to you how you would want to do that.
Like I said, I had just taken an existing design and was trying to play with it.
Yeah.
Just
If we look at this, when we did our contour, you see how that kind of pops up that way?
yeah.
The reason is because where this and this connect, I mean, it's trying to do a good job of contouring this and contouring this. And anyway, sometimes you want to manually come in here and adjust
Okay.
that curve. The same thing over on this side. Sometimes you want to manually adjust those so that they're
Okay.
like that. And the last thing is, I'd want to talk about the last name that you have here, okay?
Yep.
So would you normally do it this way where your insides are polished?
I would not. They took a picture at a cemetery and
Okay,
they liked it. And so I didn't really know how to do it. And it's not exactly like what the family had, but it was the only way I could figure out what to make it look similar.
okay. So on your text, when you have shadow text, basically you've got one color that your text can be, which is
Yep.
this, in your case, that if we were to make it black, it would look like this, and
Yep.
you wouldn't be able to see it very well at all, right?
Right.
So if it were me and I was using shadowed text, I would do one of two things. I've got a different font called MD Shadow, and then MD Shadow has an inline version, and then it's also got an outline version. So the inline is the inside portion of the text, and I can make that and just fill it in with 10% gray to be frosted. And then if I make an exact copy, I use the plus sign on my numeric keypad to make a copy. And then I can change the font to MD Shadow Outline instead. And now I've got two lines of text, one on top of the other. But because of that, I can do my shading on the inside and I can do my black on the outside if that's what I want it to look like.
Okay.
But it takes two fonts to do it. If
Oh,
we're
wow.
doing it with fonts. The other
Okay.
option is to just use the inline version, okay, and use block shadow to create our shadow, because with block shadow, it's going to just create it off of that inline, and it's even adjustable. So I can adjust how much I want that shadow to angle, and you know how much I want it to whatever. And if I want my shadow to go down instead of up, or whatever the case. So this is a little bit more powerful in being able to create my shadow myself.
What was that under again?
It is nested under the drop shadow tool. It's
Okay.
the very bottom one called block shadow.
Okay.
So that's kind of the way that I've gone, is to doing block shadow now instead of using a specific shadow font, just because I can, you know, color both of them and have more control over what my shadow looks like.
Gotcha.
I kind of like it
And
that way.
then on the one that is not black, the original one that has white outline, is there a way to change the way it is right now without using those two fonts that you did? Can you just change the outline to black and then change the middle to be frosted, or do you have to break that apart?
Yeah, in order to get the two colors, they have to be separated.
So you'd
Because
have to convert to
if I just
curves.
filled this in with black, okay, I can't tell the inside, I can't tell that inside to be a different color, because when it's a font, that inside portion is combined with the outside one, so it's actually showing through to what's
Yeah.
underneath it. If you
So you'd
broke
have
it,
to convert to curves.
yeah, if you convert it to curves, then you can mess with that stuff, but then it's not editable as text anymore. Okay.
Right.
And also you have to then, so if I convert this to curves, the easiest way is I'll just hit fill grayscale on it. Okay, maybe that's not the easiest way because it broke. Let's try this again. I'm going to convert it to curves first, convert to curves, and then I'll hit fill grayscale. And you'll see that you know, it does what we wanted it to do, but it also filled in those inside pieces too. So then you'd have to knock those out for each piece. And on a family name like this, that's not a big deal. It's only a couple pieces. But if you were doing a lot of text, you know, that's a lot of knocking out that you'd have to do. And now it's not editable as text anymore. And so I can't swipe it to change it. I can't, you know, quickly change my kerning, any of that stuff. Whereas this way, because it's still text, I can come in with my shape tool and I can edit my kerning, and, you know, I can make this letter larger or whatever the case may be, and mess with it because it's still editable text. So I prefer to go this route as opposed to converting it to curves myself.
Okay.
Does that make
Wait, I
sense?
gotta log off.
Does that make sense, Tammy?
Yes, it did. I think I just went about it the wrong way.
You can do it either way. But yeah, I prefer to keep it editable. And that's one reason that I really like the block shadow tool, is because it keeps it as an effect applied to that original text. So now that we've got this all done this way, back in the fills, if we were to, so I don't know what color you filled this in with. I'm assuming it's a Dakota mahogany, okay? But I don't really know. So if I click on this, I can click the question mark what color button, and that will tell me it's Dakota mahogany polish, okay? So now I know exactly what color that is, so I can come down to my Dakota mahogany and refill it, and it will fill it all in the right way with the same color. I normally would just be working in grayscales anyway, because I find it easier to do things in grayscale while I'm doing my my edits and stuff, and then fill it afterward. But since you already had it filled, I just left it filled that way. Any questions on anything? Does that
No,
kind of
thank
help
you.
out today?
Yeah, and you said you have a video on join, combine, and group. I know at the convention you had talked about that, but is there a video just specifically that will address the difference between weld, join, combine, and group?
I want to say no. I think I need to do one.
Yep, yes, please.
Yeah, I think we need to hit it over and over and over. Because what we should do on Friday, Julia,
Yeah.
is I'll get together a couple of different things that to show examples of why I would combine them versus group them
Okay.
versus whatever.
That would be great.
I'll get together a couple examples that way so that you can see
Okay.
why I would do those, and we'll go that route, I think, if that works for you.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah, because it's honestly, I think it's one of the things that probably takes the longest amount of time to wrap your head around. And if you're up to the challenge, next week, or not next week, but on Friday, maybe I'll have you share your screen and you can do the steps yourself. We'll watch.
That's
we'll
a
watch you do
fantastic
it.
idea.
And we'll watch Brandy do it, and maybe Tyler will do it. Feeling
I think
sick
I
all of a sudden.
I feel COVID.
Yeah, you can still work.
Still recalcitrant. No.
Anyway.
It's all good. Okay. All right.
All right,
Well,
well, that gets us to a time for this session. Thanks for sending those designs. I think it's helpful to have stuff to work with ahead of time. So I'll get together some stuff for Friday. And if you have anything, go ahead and send it too. I mean, we can cover whatever you need to. But
I know I've got something that I want to work on, and it might be extremely remedial, but somebody out there probably needs to know how to do it.
I think that's great. Absolutely. So you're good with doing that on Friday, or did you need to do it today, Brandy?
I can do it Friday.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks everybody
All right.
for joining.
Bye,
We'll see you on
everybody.
Friday.
awesome.
All right, bye-bye.